Hey there. It's great to be back in Birmingham, Alabama, where I lived from 2002 until 2008, and I worked here as an investigative reporter and television news anchor. I'm visiting today and really excited to have brunch with my dear friend Lisa McNair. We had an opportunity to get to know each other because, in part, her father, Chris McNair, was a figure who chronicled the civil rights movement as a photographer, and unfortunately the family lost their daughter, Denise McNair, who was one of the 4 little girls killed in the 16th Street church bombing. And so Lisa today is telling her family's story, and she's sitting down speaking with me about what it's like to live during that era and see what she saw through her parents' eyes. And she is also in transition, switching gears, going from full-time employment to speaking about her family's history, as well as her voice, her passion, and what she is doing today to really change the hearts and minds of America to make this world a better, diverse place to live in. So, Lisa, thanks for joining me today and talking about unleashing your wow and switching gears.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to see you, girl.
Likewise, I missed you guys so much. I've often heard you talk about Denise and your role. Could you explain to me how this has shaped your entire life? And it's not the way that anyone would imagine being a celebrity, but you and your family have looked upon, are looked upon as being celebrities. How has that shaped who you are?
I think that shaped just about everything that I am. I mean, because that's my earliest memory, that she was killed in a church by white people who didn't like black people. So, you know, that's been forever. There's a picture of her in our living room that's been there all my life. So it makes you somewhat of a celebrity in the eyes of others, not in us and ourselves. But, you know, it's challenging to go anywhere, walk in a store and write a check or give your debit card and they see your last name's McNair and people want to say, oh my God, you know, and start a conversation. Or friends will be somewhere and they'll introduce you. And so this is my friend Lisa McNair, her sister was killed in the bombing. And I literally have people just start to weep while, you know, once they met me. And so at first it was just real strange and odd. And as a kid, you didn't know what to do with that. You're just like, why are these people just reacting so strangely? But then, you know, now as an adult, you know that's understandable. And then now it's so important to tell her story and to let her story be known, especially in this season where people are saying critical race theory, and which they're translating that to mean, oh, we don't want to learn anything about black history, civil rights, or anything that happened. So I think it's so important that we share our shared American history, because we all need to know it, black and white, and it's important to know the good and the bad so we don't repeat the bad.
Absolutely. And how is that shaping the unleashing of your wow, your brand, your story, your purpose?
Yeah, I think it's just a unique time in our history in America, and because it allows me to share this story, which so many people have heard of in part, but then some people have not heard about it at all. Some people are new to the fact that, oh my God, especially young people killed each other, mistreated each other for decades and centuries just because they were black. And then the little kids don't really get it. They don't understand. Particularly mostly white little kids, not black little kids. Black little kids, at some point, the parents had to have that conversation with them early on. You're black, and this is what possibly could happen to you by being black in America. But I think it's a great time, considering all the stuff that's gone on in America, for me to travel and to speak about how we navigated through it, my parents taught us not to hate, but to love everyone, and to try to do as Dr. King said in one of his principles of nonviolence, to win friends and to make acquaintances with people. Do unto others you'd have done unto them. You know, make people know who you are, and love one as each other, as a human being, so that you can get along much better. So I think it's very, very key to what I'm doing now, and I'm so glad that my business is growing, and I hope it grows exponentially more, even especially after the book comes out that I'm writing.
Yeah, tell me about the book.
The book is a memoir of my life. I wanted to write it all of my life. From when I was 14, I knew that my walk in this world was very different from anybody else's. And so I started putting pen to paper in 2006, so it's taken me a while. And then someone suggested, I was stuck, and they were like, well, why don't you just write to your sister, right as you're writing letters to your sister? So that worked perfectly. And so the book is called Dear Denise, Letters to the Sister I Never Knew. Published by UA Press in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and it's due to be out in September of this year.
What do you try to lead? First of all, congratulations. I know this book has been in you for a while.
Forever!
I love the Dear Denise letters. That's so touching.
Mm-hmm.
What message do you try to leave the groups with when you speak?
That I want people to just think out of your normal way of thinking. Acknowledge, and most of my groups tend to be white, acknowledge that, white people have had some bad stuff that they've done, whether you did it or your grandparents did it or your parents did it. Let's acknowledge that that's happened. Let's open the door and acknowledge that it's happened. Okay, that's happened and it's painful and it hurts. Okay, now, what are you going to do going forward? Now that you know what not to do, and you see it, are you going to just laugh and move on? Are you going to ignore people when they say it? Are you going to say, hey, this isn't right. This hurt people. This hurt 4 little girls who were just going to church, and they were killed, and they never got to grow up, and their parents suffered through sorrow for the rest of their lives. What are we doing as human beings to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And how brave are you going to be going forward to squash this out? So those are some things that I talk about when I meet with people.
And then you have been speaking with Rena Evers, whose father, Medgar Evers, was assassinated in his driveway in Jackson, Mississippi. What has that experience been like? How did you guys get together?
Oh, God, I might cry because it's so wonderful. I met her on a tour group, and I had never met, I think I met her once before, but just like in passing. And she is, what's unique about it is she's almost the age that Denise would be, and her middle name is Denise. So, what about that? I was crying. But she's like a big sister to me. But unlike many people other than my sister, my younger sister, nobody knows what we've been through. Nobody knows how to walk this walk that we've walked. It's a very different walk, and everybody doesn't understand. And unless you've been thrust in it, unbeknownst to you, everybody can't understand. But Rena is someone that I can go to who gets me and understands me, and she's much like the big sister that I never got.
Okay, like a lot of people, you had to make a transition during the pandemic, but now you're going full throttle as a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
I got laid off August of 2020 from my job that I'd been on for 15 years.
Wow.
And, we were sent home in March of that year. So I kind of knew that as the pandemic went on, they weren't going to be able to keep that up. I was a small nonprofit, and money wasn't coming in as well to nonprofits. And then I was one of the staff people who pretty much really could not do their job because of COVID. Like almost all the aspects of my job meant going out and outreach, that I was outreach coordinator. So going out and reaching and touching was prohibited. So I couldn't do my job. So my boss mentioned one staff meeting that the board was going to be reevaluating everybody's jobs. And so I knew then I was going to get fired. I was going to get laid off. So I started really focusing on my speaking business and how to promote that and what to do, what I needed to do. I've been doing it for, on the side since 2013. So it was kind of like a side business, a side hustle to pay the bills with, buy a new cute purse every now and then, go on a trip with friends. But it wasn't serious. But as the years went on and I really would go on these speaking engagements and they'd be so moving, I just knew that I had to do this full time. I felt like God was leading me to do this full time, and I really needed to try to figure out an exit to leave my job. But it was hard because you want to know there's a steady check coming. So I hadn't pulled the plug on it. So a lot of people found being laid off during that time a terrible thing. I found being laid off a great thing because it did something for me that I was having a hard time doing myself, and that was leaving my job. But it has been such a blessing. I have spoken to so many people, groups, organizations, churches, and sharing the story of our family, the bombing and what happened, but how we navigated through that. And it was very unique. In fact, most of my groups that I speak to, organizations, happen to be white people. People who are white churches, predominantly white businesses and organizations, and a lot of who don't know the story or only know a piece of the story. And I just find it so important that to share with our white brothers and sisters. I think, sure, there's a segment of white people that get it. There's such a huge segment of white people that just don't get it. And I think some of them don't want to get it. But then some of them really don't know that they were lives. They were real people. I get people oftentimes saying, I knew that this was history, but I didn't put it together that this happened to real people. That I hear often. And I think that's the key to us coming together as human beings in America. If we can stop and look at each individual as a human being, because we are all human beings and we all live in the same country on the same planet together, we must figure out a way how to get along. And that's so, so important. And hopefully that will break the yokes of racism and slavery that's in our DNA and been so pervasive in this country for, centuries. I think getting to know each other and having the dialogue. So if that means I have to travel and talk to a bunch of people I don't know and share this story over and again and cry over and over and over again, if, I'm moved to cry that day, I think that's what I need to do, because it's a God mission. I ask him to speak through me every time I speak, because if he talks, I'm hoping people will listen and their hearts will be open to others and love will take place. So.